So I guess I'm spending my Christmas scrolling through Reddit instead of doing literally anything else because my brain won't shut up and I need to get this out somewhere before I lose it completely. I'm 24 and Eric is 26. We've been together for about a year and 4 months, which I know isn't like decades or anything, but it felt real. It felt like something that was actually going somewhere. We met through mutual friends at this barbecue thing last summer, the one before, and I remember thinking he was one of those guys who seemed too good to be true. Funny, paid attention when I talked, remembered little things I mentioned weeks later, the whole package or whatever. For context about how serious this was, we'd been talking about moving in together after my lease ends in March. Like actually talking about it. Looking at apartments online together, discussing whose furniture we'd keep versus donate. He met my parents multiple times. I met his mom and his stepdad. We did Thanksgiving at his family's place this year, and his mom kept making jokes about grandkids, which was awkward but also kind of sweet, because it meant she saw me as permanent. Christmas was supposed to be our thing this year. We planned it out like 2 months ago. Christmas Eve, we were going to do this whole thing at my apartment, cook dinner together, exchange gifts, watch movies, the whole cozy couple aesthetic. Then Christmas Day, we'd do the family rounds, his place for brunch and my parents' house for dinner. I was actually excited about it. I bought matching pajama sets for us, which I know is cheesy as hell, but whatever. I thought it would be cute for pictures. So Christmas Eve morning, I'm at my apartment getting everything ready. I'd cleaned the whole place the day before, bought all the ingredients for this pasta dish he loves, had candles and everything set up. I was in a genuinely good mood, which feels important to mention because I wasn't being paranoid or suspicious or any of the things he later accused me of being. I was just happy and looking forward to seeing my boyfriend. Around 2 p.m., he texts me saying his boss called and there's some emergency at his job and he needs to go in. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't disappointed because obviously I was, but I also wasn't going to be that girlfriend who throws a fit about work stuff. Things happen. Emergencies happen. I told him it was fine. We could do everything when he got back. Asked how long he thought he'd be there. He said probably until late, maybe 9 or 10, and that he was really sorry and he'd make it up to me. I said, okay, no worries, just keep me posted. I was bummed, but I figured I'd just push our dinner back and we'd still have the evening together. So I'm sitting there in my apartment that I spent all this time making nice, watching the hours tick by, and I start feeling bad for him. Like here he is stuck dealing with work drama on Christmas Eve while I'm just sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I decided to do something sweet and order him food to his job. He works at this shipping warehouse place, one of those big logistics buildings by the industrial area near the highway. I figured he probably hadn't eaten, and it would be a nice surprise to have dinner show up for him. I placed an order through DoorDash, just stuff from this Mexican place he likes. Burrito bowl, chips and guac, a churro because he has a sweet tooth. I put a note in the delivery instructions saying it was for Eric and to call the number on the order when they arrived, so I could give him a heads up to come outside. I thought I was being such a good girlfriend, honestly. About 40 minutes later, my phone rings and it's the delivery driver. The guy sounds confused and tells me he's at the address, but the whole building is dark and locked up. No cars in the lot, nobody around, looks completely closed. He asks if I'm sure I have the right address. I'm sitting there like, what do you mean it's closed? I double-checked the address with him and yeah, it was right. He said there's not a single light on anywhere, the parking lot is empty, and there's a sign on the door that says they're closed for the holiday. I thanked him and told him to just keep the food and tipped him extra for his trouble. My first thought wasn't even suspicion, honestly. My first thought was that maybe they moved the emergency work to a different location or something. Maybe there was a problem at another building they manage. I don't know, I was making excuses before I even knew I needed excuses. I tried calling Eric, but it went to voicemail. Texted him asking how things were going at work. No response. Called again maybe 20 minutes later. Voicemail again. At this point, I'm starting to feel weird, but I'm still not jumping to conclusions because, again, I trusted this man. I thought I knew him. Then I remembered we still had location sharing turned on. Okay, so backstory on that because I know how this sounds. We set up location sharing like 6 months ago for completely normal reasons. I was driving to visit my cousin about 4 hours away, and he wanted to be able to see when I got there safe without me having to text and drive. After that, we just never turned it off. Neither of us really thought about it. It wasn't a surveillance thing, it was just there. I honestly forgot about it most of the time. So I open the app and look for his location, expecting to see him at some alternate work site or whatever story I was telling myself. Instead, his little dot is across town in this residential neighborhood I've never been to. Not at work, not anywhere near work, just sitting at some random house. I stared at my phone for probably a full minute just trying to process what I was looking at. Then I screenshotted it because something in my gut told me to. I tried calling him again. This time it rang longer before going to voicemail, which meant he was actively declining my calls. I texted him asking where he was and if everything was okay. Nothing. Called one more time. Straight to voicemail now. He'd turned his phone off or blocked me temporarily or something. I did what any unhinged person would do in 2024 and started checking social media. I don't know what I was looking for exactly. Proof that I was wrong, maybe. I went through Instagram just scrolling through stories from people we both know. People from his job, his college friends, whatever. And then I found it. This girl, Christine, who's in Eric's MBA program, I'd met her once at some networking thing he dragged me to. She had a story up from what looked like a Christmas Eve party. Living room decorated all nice, people holding drinks, typical holiday gathering. I almost scrolled past it, but something made me look closer. There in the background, holding a red cup and looking real comfortable, was Eric. My Eric. My boyfriend who was supposedly at work dealing with an emergency. Chilling at a house party with a drink in his hand, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. I watched that story probably 15 times. Zoomed in on his face to make absolutely sure it was him, even though I knew it was him the second I saw it. Same jacket he texted me a picture of himself wearing that morning when he said he was heading out. Same watch I got him for his birthday. It was him, and he was at a party while I sat alone in my apartment like an idiot waiting for him to come back from a work emergency that didn't exist. I screenshotted that too. Now here's where I want to be clear about something. A lot of people would probably say I should have waited, calmed down, confronted him later when I had time to think, and maybe that would have been the smart thing to do. But I was sitting there on Christmas Eve realizing my boyfriend had lied straight to my face so he could go to some party without me, and smart wasn't really what I was feeling. I called him again. This time he actually picked up, which was almost worse because it meant he'd been choosing to ignore me this whole time. His voice was all casual, like nothing was wrong, asking what's up, babe, and I could hear noise in the background, music and people talking. I asked him how work was going, and he said it was fine, really busy, probably going to be another couple hours, lying to me in real time while I could literally hear the party happening behind him. I told him that was interesting because I had ordered food to his job as a surprise, and the delivery guy said the building was completely closed and empty. Dead silence on his end. I asked him if he wanted to try again with a different story. He started stumbling over his words, saying something about how they moved locations last minute and went to his supervisor's house to work on the problem from there, and it was complicated to explain. I told him cool. Is his supervisor's house at whatever the address was from his location, because that's where his phone showed him being. More silence. Then he asked why I was tracking his location like some kind of psycho. I swear something in me just snapped. Here I was with literal evidence that he lied to me. Screenshots of him at a party when he said he was working, and his response was to turn it around and make me the problem for finding out. I told him I wasn't tracking him, we've had location sharing on for months. He's the one who forgot to turn it off before lying to me. And also I just watched Christine's Instagram story, and I could see him in the background at a party, so maybe he should work on his story a little more before he tries to gaslight me. He got real quiet and then started talking to me like I was being unreasonable. He said I was blowing this out of proportion and that it wasn't what I thought. I asked him what exactly did he think I thought, because from where I was standing, it looked like he lied about working on Christmas Eve so he could go to a party without me. Was I missing something? He said it was just a small thing at Christine's place, a few people from his program, and he didn't think I'd want to come because I always seem uncomfortable at his school events. I told him, uncomfortable? Maybe because the one time I went, everyone was talking about case studies and market analysis, and I felt like I was sitting at the wrong lunch table. But that doesn't mean I wanted to spend Christmas Eve alone while he partied without me. He could have just asked me instead of making up a whole lie about work. Then he hit me with the line that's still ringing in my head. He said maybe this is exactly why he didn't invite me, because I clearly have trust issues, and he can't even go to a casual get-together without me turning into the FBI. He said he's been feeling suffocated lately, and this reaction from me is proving his point. He actually said that to me, that my reaction to catching him in a lie was the problem. I asked if he was serious right now. I asked if he really thought the issue here was me being upset and not him lying to me on Christmas Eve. He said there's obviously something broken between us if I'm checking his location and stalking his classmates' social media, and that maybe we need to rethink this whole relationship because he can't be with someone who's this obsessive and controlling. Obsessive, controlling, me, the person who spent weeks planning a nice Christmas for us. The person who tried to surprise him with food because I felt bad that he was stuck at work. The person who only found out about his lie because I was trying to do something nice. I told him if that's how he felt, then let me make it real easy for him. I told him we were done, that he could enjoy his party, and that I hoped Christine's appetizers were worth throwing away a year and a half for. I hung up and blocked his number. Blocked him on Instagram, Snapchat, everything. I sat there in my apartment still surrounded by all that Christmas stuff, and I didn't even cry at first. I was just numb and angry and confused about how the night had gone so wrong so fast. Here's why I'm posting this now. Because apparently in the 2 days since Christmas Eve, Eric has been on a full campaign telling everyone who will listen that I ruined Christmas by being a controlling psycho girlfriend. His version of events is that I was obsessively tracking his location, went through his phone, and caused a scene when I found out he was at an innocent gathering with classmates. He's telling people I've always been jealous and insecure and that he's relieved to finally be free from my constant surveillance. My friend Vera texted me asking if I was okay because Eric's friend had been telling people at some New Year's Eve pregame that I had a full breakdown and was threatening to show up at his apartment. I didn't even know what to say. I haven't threatened anyone. I haven't done anything except block him and try to process what happened. Then this morning my mom called me because apparently Eric's mom called her to say she was disappointed in how I treated her son, and that she thought I was raised better than to spy on people and cause drama over nothing. My mom. He got his mother to call my mother about this. I'm losing it a little bit. Part of me knows I did the right thing by ending it immediately. He lied. I caught him. I left. That should be the end of the story. But now I'm being painted as this unstable, crazy ex, when all I did was accidentally discover that my boyfriend was a liar. The thing that's eating at me the most is that I don't even fully understand why he lied. Like, if he wanted to go to Christine's party without me, he could have just said that. I might have been annoyed, but we could have talked about it. Instead, he invented a whole work emergency and made me spend Christmas Eve alone for no reason. Unless there is a reason, and I'm just not seeing it. Vera keeps asking me if I think something's going on with Christine, and honestly, I don't know. I didn't get that vibe when I met her, but I also didn't think my boyfriend would lie to my face about working on Christmas, so clearly my instincts aren't reliable. What I do know is that he hasn't tried to actually talk to me since I blocked him. He's been talking about me to everyone, but he hasn't shown up at my apartment, hasn't tried to reach out through friends, hasn't done any of the things you'd do if you actually wanted to fix things or even apologize. He's just been building his narrative to make sure everyone thinks he's the victim. I saved all the screenshots, the location showing him across town, Christine's Instagram story with him in the background, the timestamps on my texts and calls that show I was trying to reach him for hours while he ignored me. I don't know if any of it matters, but I have it. Also, if anyone knows how to get the smell of pine candles out of an apartment, I'd appreciate that too, because I can't light those anymore without feeling like an idiot. Update. So my mom came over that evening after I posted. I'd been dreading it all day because I knew she'd have questions about the call from Eric's mom, and I wasn't sure if she was coming over to support me or to lecture me about causing drama. My mom is usually pretty reasonable, but she also has this thing about keeping the peace and not making waves, and I was worried she'd been influenced by whatever Eric's mom told her. She walked in and immediately started looking around at my apartment, which still had some of the Christmas decorations up, because I hadn't had the energy to take them down. The matching pajamas I bought for me and Eric were still in their bag on the chair, because I never got to give them to him. She didn't say anything about it, but I could tell she noticed. We sat down and she asked me what happened with Eric. Not in an accusatory way, but in that mom way where you can tell she's trying to figure out the situation before she picks a side. I told her everything, the whole story from the beginning, showed her the screenshots of his location and Christine's Instagram story, walked her through the timeline of me trying to reach him while he ignored my calls. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said she wished I'd told her this before Eric's mom called because she'd spent 20 minutes on the phone being lectured about how I was spying on her son and needed to learn boundaries. I asked what she said back, and she told me she mostly just listened because she didn't have my side of the story yet, and didn't want to say something she couldn't take back. That kind of stung, honestly. Like, I get why she did it, but the idea of my own mom sitting there listening to Eric's mom trash me without defending me felt bad. She must have seen it on my face because she said she was sorry, that she should have told Eric's mom she'd call her back after talking to me, and that now that she knew what actually happened, she was firmly on my side. She asked if Eric had tried to reach out at all, and I told her I blocked him on everything so he couldn't. She got this look on her face and said something that I've been thinking about ever since. She said she understood why I blocked him, but that it might have been a tactical mistake because now he gets to control the narrative without me being able to respond. She said when one person goes silent and the other person keeps talking, the talking person usually wins in the court of public opinion. I hadn't thought about it that way. In my head, blocking him was taking my power back, but she had a point that all I'd really done was remove myself from the conversation entirely, while he ran around telling everyone his version. I asked her what she thought I should do, and she said she wasn't sure. But maybe I needed to at least have one real conversation with him where I could say my piece instead of just cutting him off. I told her I didn't want to talk to him, that I had nothing to say to someone who lied to me and then tried to make me the bad guy for finding out. She said she understood that, but asked if I was really okay with everyone thinking I was some obsessive stalker girlfriend, when I knew that wasn't true. She said sometimes you have to advocate for yourself even when it's uncomfortable. By the time she left, I was feeling a little better but also more confused because part of me knew she was right about needing to stand up for myself, and part of me just wanted to stay in my apartment and pretend none of this was happening. The next day, which was December 27th, I got a text from Vera saying Eric had shown up at her apartment looking for me. I guess he figured out I blocked him and went to my closest friend assuming she'd know where I was, or be willing to pass along a message. She said he seemed upset and kept saying he needed to talk to me and explain that things got out of hand and he never meant for any of this to happen. Vera asked what I wanted her to do, and I told her to tell him to leave me alone. But then I kept thinking about what my mom said about not letting him control the narrative. And honestly, a big part of me wanted to confront him, not to give him a chance to explain, but to tell him exactly what I thought of him to his face instead of just disappearing. About 2 hours later, there was a knock on my door, and when I looked through the peephole, there he was. Eric. The first thing he said was thank you for agreeing to see him. I told him I wasn't doing him a favor, I was giving him a chance to explain himself before I decided whether to press forward with telling everyone the truth about what happened. I wanted him to know from the start that this wasn't going to be some tearful reunion where I forgave him because he showed up with sad eyes. He asked if he could come in and I said no. We could talk in the hallway. I wasn't about to let him into my space after everything. He started talking about Christmas Eve, saying he knew he messed up and he should have just told me about the party instead of making up the work thing. I asked him why he didn't just tell me then. Like, what was so hard about saying, hey babe, Christine's having a small thing and I want to stop by? He could have even invited me. Or if he didn't want me there for some reason, he could have just said that. That's when he said something that made me want to slam the door in his face. He said he didn't invite me because he knew I'd make it weird. He said every time I went to his school events, I acted uncomfortable. and made him feel like he had to babysit me instead of actually networking and talking to people. He said he just wanted one night where he could hang out with his classmates without worrying about whether I was having a good time or feeling left out. I just stared at him because, wow. First of all, I went to one event with him, and yes, I felt awkward because everyone was talking about business stuff I didn't understand, and he barely introduced me to anyone. I sat there for 2 hours nursing the same drink while he schmoozed around the room, and then on the way home he asked if I had fun, like I was supposed to be thrilled about being ignored at a party full of strangers. And now he was using my discomfort at that one event to justify lying to me on Christmas Eve and leaving me alone. I told him that was such garbage. I told him if he felt like he couldn't bring me to things with his classmates, that was a conversation we should have had months ago, instead of him just deciding to exclude me and lie about it. I said I wasn't uncomfortable because I'm some socially awkward loser. I was uncomfortable because he didn't make any effort to include me, and I spent the whole night standing in a corner while he pretended I wasn't there. He started saying that wasn't fair, that he was trying to make connections for his career and he couldn't spend the whole night holding my hand. I told him I never asked him to hold my hand. I asked him to act like we were in a relationship at a public event instead of treating me like some girl he barely knew who happened to show up. We went back and forth like this for a while. Him trying to explain why he felt justified in lying and me shooting down every excuse he made. At some point he said something about how he's been feeling like we want different things and that maybe this was a sign that we weren't compatible anymore. I asked him what different things. He said he was in a really demanding program, and his career was his priority right now, and he felt like I didn't understand that. He said sometimes he needed space to focus on his goals, and I was always wanting more time and more attention than he could give. Okay, so that was news to me. Because from my perspective, I was extremely supportive of his MBA program. I helped him study for exams, I proofread his papers, I made him dinner on nights when he had late classes so he'd have food ready when he got home. I didn't complain when he canceled plans because of group projects or study sessions. I literally rearranged my whole schedule around his program for the past year and a half, and now he was standing here telling me I was too needy and demanding. I told him that was complete revisionist history, and he knew it. I asked him when exactly I was so demanding that he couldn't handle it. He couldn't give me a specific example, just kept saying it was a vibe and a feeling and that I wouldn't understand. Then I asked him about Christine. Straight up asked if something was going on with her because I needed to know. He got all defensive and said this was exactly what he was talking about, that I was so paranoid and jealous that I couldn't even handle him having female friends in his program. I said I never had a problem with him having female friends. I had a problem with him lying to me about being at work so he could go to her party. That's not the same thing, and he needed to stop acting like my concern was coming from nowhere. He swore nothing was happening with Christine, that she was just a classmate and they worked on group projects together and that's it. He said the party was for everyone in their cohort who was staying in town for the holidays. It wasn't some special thing with her. I asked then why was he so determined to go without me that he invented a whole work emergency. He said he already told me, he just wanted one night without having to worry about me being uncomfortable and making things awkward. Every answer he gave made me angrier because none of it added up to him needing to lie. If he wanted to go solo, he could have said that. If he thought I'd be uncomfortable, he could have asked me. If he was feeling smothered, he could have brought it up literally any time in the past year instead of manufacturing fake overtime shifts. I told him I was done hearing excuses. I said he lied to my face, spent Christmas Eve partying while I sat home alone waiting for him. And then when I caught him, his first instinct was to call me the problem. I said that told me everything I needed to know about who he was as a person. He said I was being dramatic and that one mistake shouldn't erase everything we built together. I told him it wasn't one mistake. The mistake was the lie. Everything after that, the deflecting, the Darvo nonsense, calling me obsessive and controlling, getting his mom to call my mom, telling all our friends I'm crazy, that was a choice. He chose to attack me instead of apologizing. He chose to protect his ego instead of admitting he was wrong. And now he was standing in my hallway still trying to convince me that I was overreacting instead of just saying sorry. He finally got quiet after that. Then he said he was sorry, but he said it in that way where you can tell someone's only apologizing because they think it's what you want to hear, and not because they actually mean it. Like the word sorry followed by a big but. He said he was sorry, but I had to understand where he was coming from. He said he was sorry, but the way I found out was still a violation of his privacy. He said he was sorry, but maybe if I'd been more supportive of his career, none of this would have happened. I actually laughed at that last one. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. He was really standing there trying to make his choice to lie to me somehow. My fault for not being supportive enough. I told him we were definitely done, and this time I meant it. I told him to stop talking about me to people, to leave me alone, and to have a nice life. He asked if we could at least try to be civil about this, like we'd still see each other at mutual friends things, and he didn't want it to be weird. I told him he made it weird by starting a smear campaign against me within hours of us breaking up. I said if he wanted things to be civil, he could start by telling everyone the truth about what actually happened instead of painting me as some psycho stalker. He said his version was the truth, that I did check his location without his permission, and I did go through his classmates' social media looking for him. I told him the location sharing was mutual, and he knew it was on, and the only reason I even looked was because he lied about where he was. I wasn't tracking him. I was trying to figure out why my boyfriend's workplace was closed when he said he was there. That's not stalking. That's normal concern. He didn't have a response for that. Just stood there looking frustrated like he couldn't understand why I wasn't buying his version of events. I told him to leave. He said one more thing before he went. He said he really did love me and he didn't want it to end like this. He said maybe in a few weeks when we'd both calmed down we could try again and do things differently. He left. Every explanation he gave was designed to make it my fault somehow, whether it was my awkwardness at his events or my neediness or my paranoia. Nothing he said was actually taking responsibility for deciding to lie to my face on Christmas Eve. I called Vera and told her what happened. She came over that night and we ordered food and she let me rant for like 3 hours. She said she always thought Eric was a little too smooth, like everything he said was calculated to make himself look good. She mentioned something I hadn't really thought about before, which was that she'd noticed over the past few months he seemed to be pulling away from stuff with our friend group. Like he'd skip things he used to come to, or show up late and leave early, or seem distracted when he was there. She didn't say anything at the time because she figured it was just MBA stress, but now she was wondering if something else was going on. That stuck with me because I'd noticed some of that too, but I'd made the same excuse. He was busy with school. He was tired. He had a lot on his plate. I kept giving him the benefit of the doubt because that's what you do when you trust someone. Now I was looking back at all those moments and wondering what else he was doing when he said he was studying or at group meetings or too tired to hang out. The next day I decided to unblock him. Not because I wanted to talk to him again, but because I wanted to be able to see if he was still posting about me or talking to people. I figured if he was going to keep running his mouth, I should at least know what he was saying. That's when I saw he'd posted a story. It was a photo of him and a bunch of people, including Christine, at what looked like a New Year's Eve party. She was right next to him in the picture, leaning into him the way you lean into someone you're comfortable with. His arm wasn't around her exactly, but it was behind her in a way that didn't look casual. The caption said something about starting fresh in the new year, surrounded by people who actually appreciate him. I screenshotted that too. My mom thinks I should write out everything that happened and send it to the people who matter most so they have my side. Vera thinks I should just focus on moving on and let karma handle the rest. I honestly don't know what's right. What I do know is that I'm not crazy. I'm not obsessive or controlling or any of the things he said about me. I was a good girlfriend who trusted the wrong person and got burned for it. And I'm not going to let him rewrite that story just because he's louder than me. I'll update again if anything else happens. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised by anything. Oh, and someone in the comments last time asked how old Christine was. She's 27 and single as far as I know. Just putting that out there. Last update. So after my last post, things got messier before they got better. Eric kept posting stuff on social media clearly aimed at me, vague stories. Every single one felt like a dig, and I knew people were seeing them and probably believing his version. Vera convinced me to come to this thing our friend group was doing for someone's birthday about 2 weeks after New Year's. I didn't want to go because I knew there was a chance Eric would be there. But she said I couldn't let him take our friends from me too. She had a point. These were my friends first. I'm the one who introduced him to most of them. And I wasn't about to hide in my apartment while he rewrote history. I showed up and Eric was already there with a group of people, including 2 guys from our friend circle who I thought were closer to me than to him. When I walked in, the whole vibe shifted. Eric looked at me like he couldn't believe I had the nerve to show up. I looked right back at him and went to find Vera. For about an hour, we existed in the same space without talking. I could feel him watching me, could hear him laughing too loud at things that probably weren't funny, performing for everyone like he wanted to prove he was unbothered. I was doing my own version of the same thing probably. Fake smiling, making conversation, pretending my stomach wasn't in knots. Then I went to get a drink and he followed me, cornered me by the kitchen and said we needed to talk because this was getting ridiculous. I told him I had nothing else to say to him. He said he was tired of the drama and the tension and couldn't we just move past this like adults. I told him moving past it would require him to stop telling everyone I was an obsessive stalker. He said he stopped talking about it weeks ago and I was the one keeping it alive by acting weird around him. I said I wasn't acting weird. I was acting like someone who caught their boyfriend lying and got blamed for it. And if that made him uncomfortable, then good. He got frustrated and said I needed to let it go already. He said yeah, he made a mistake, but I made it into this huge thing when it didn't have to be. I asked what exactly was the appropriate reaction to finding out your boyfriend lied about working so he could party with another girl. He said Christine wasn't another girl, she was a classmate, and I was proving his point by still being hung up on her. That's when I asked him straight up. I said, are you with her now? Because the pictures I've seen sure make it look like something's going on. He got quiet for a second and then said even if he was, it wouldn't be any of my business anymore since I ended things. I told him I ended things because he lied to me, and if he moved on to Christine 2 weeks later, that tells me everything I need to know about what was actually happening. He didn't deny it. He just stood there with this look on his face like he was calculating what to say next. Finally, he said Christine understood him in ways I never did, and that she supported his goals instead of making him feel guilty for having ambitions. I almost laughed because, wow, the rewriting of history was unreal. I asked when exactly I made him feel guilty for his ambitions. I asked for one specific example. I told him he was full of it. I said I spent a year and a half supporting everything he did, rearranging my life around his schedule, helping him with his work, celebrating every small win with him, and now he was standing here pretending I was some unsupportive burden because it made him feel better about being a liar and probably a cheater too. He tried to interrupt, but I wasn't done. I told him the saddest part was that I actually loved him. I was planning a future with him. I thought we were building something real. And the whole time he was apparently wishing he was somewhere else with someone else. He couldn't even give me the basic respect of being honest about it. Instead, he made up lies and then tried to make me the villain when I found out. He said I was being dramatic again. I said no, I was being accurate. And there's a difference. I told him I was done letting him make me question my own reality. I knew what happened. I knew he lied. I knew he chose to attack me instead of apologizing. And I knew that whatever he had going on with Christine started before Christmas Eve, whether he admitted it or not. He asked what I wanted from him. Like, genuinely asked, as if he couldn't figure out what would make this better. I told him I wanted him to stop pretending he was the victim. I wanted him to tell the truth to the people he lied to about me. I wanted him to own what he did instead of hiding behind excuses about my supposed jealousy and insecurity. He said he couldn't control what people believed. I said no, but he could control what he told them, and he chose to tell them lies. That was on him. We stood there staring at each other, and I realized I was never going to get what I wanted from him. He was never going to admit he was wrong, never going to take responsibility, never going to tell people the truth. That's just not who he was. And I had to be okay with that because I couldn't force him to be a better person. I told him I was done with this conversation and done with him. I said I didn't care what he told people anymore because anyone who believed his version without asking me wasn't someone I needed in my life anyway. I said he could have Christine and his MBA friends and his carefully curated image. I was going to be fine without any of it. My mom called Eric's mom back and told her the full story. I don't know what was said, but Eric's mom hasn't contacted anyone in my family since. I took down the rest of the Christmas decorations, donated the matching pajamas to Goodwill still in the packaging, deleted all our pictures. Not because I'm heartbroken, but because I don't need reminders of someone who didn't deserve my time. That's it. That's the whole story. I'm logging off this throwaway and moving on with my life.